Good morning to one and all present. The Department of Bank Management, Ethiraj College Women is happy to welcome you all to the day 2 of the 4-day webinar series, Be Unstoppable, organized in association with Young Indians. Dr.Ms.Renukadevi, Associate Professor, Department of Bank Management, is here to introduce today's resource person. Over to you, Renu ma'am.
Thank you, Veena. Happy morning to one and all. It gives me a great pleasure in welcoming you all to day 2 of the webinar series, Be Unstoppable. Today's session focuses on startups. So, uh, the resource person will be deliberating on how to create an impactful startup, its ecosystem, and sustainable strategies. I'm glad to introduce our today's resource person, who is a young budding entrepreneur, Ms. Vaishnavi Rajan, the managing director of Dhasha Food Products. She is a management graduate from Women's Christian College and has pursued her post graduation on organizational development from the Madras School of Social Works. She has re established the House of Dasha, which is a unique grandmother granddaughter duo which was passed on to her by her grandmother, Mrs. Damayanti. The House of Dasha has a collection of hand-picked secret recipes from her grandmother's kitchen, and they specialize in sprouted indigenous South Indian grains. And their brand name Sprouts is gradually gaining global recognition. Vaishnavi is one among the 10 women from across India selected to represent her line of work in Queensland, Australia, as a part of the global program initiated by the government of Queensland. Her interest is exhaustive. She is also a wildlife enthusiast and a nature photographer. We are very glad to have you, Ms. Vaishnavi Rajan, online for our webinar series. I hope you all have an enriching and engaging session ahead. Over to Mrs. Vaishnavi Rajan.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful introduction. And to all the students online, thank you so much for logging in on a quarantine Friday morning. It must be exhausting, but thanks for the effort. Like ma'am said, I'm Vaishnavi Rajan, a member of Young Indians Chennai chapter. I run a company called Dhasha Food Products, which we started in 2018. We're only a year and a half old, and we also actively are learning as we grow. I felt that our story would be easily relatable to you all, as we too are in the beginning stages of our journey. I'll give you a heads up. It's going to be a very generic session and more of an insider view of setting up a startup ecosystem. I assure you, I'll keep the briefing session crisp and short so we can possibly have a longer discussion session. The topic for the day is step up and startup. Let's first split the topic of discussion into two parts, the startup part and the step up part. The startup part will be about the need to start up and the factors that determine the success of a startup. While the step up part will highlight on the topics that could help determine the longevity and the sustainability of the startup. But first, tell me, why should we start up? In today's age and day, with the current economic and global situation and slowdown in mind, it's always safe to be well prepared because almost all our plans for the first half of 2020 came to an abrupt halt. So it's wise to have backups and alternatives. In times like these, millennials and Gen Zs, like people behind us, have some amazing opportunities at their fingertips. While our parents' generation had to put in the time and work their way up the corporate ladder, the I generation or the net generation have a quicker and more fun alternative. Since we grew up with technology, we have a competitive advantage to build brands that rely on digital marketing and technology. Those of you who attended yesterday's session, we had Mr. Seshu brief us on utilizing the digital media platform and also on possible ways to capitalize from it. Similarly, we'll have another speaker who will be highlighting to you on the technology front. So whether you want to create the next Snapchat, start a marketing agency, or become an Instagram influencer, this is the right time to hustle and get to work on your own business. Speaking of starting a business, let's first get to the basics. You need to be very clear on your platform. What is that you want to sell? be it a product or service. What is the idea that you want to put forth and share with the world? It has to be something uh, that necessarily needs to create or address a demand that has been not been seen before in the market, which is which is essentially what you want to sell as well. The gap in the market you aim to address, or the new demand that you wish to create. These two factors need to be assessed before formulating a product or a service. And why do you think the customers would buy your product? As in, your do you have a unique selling perspective, or your competitive advantage it has over the other brands? What is that one factor that will make you stand apart from the existing market availability? And how do you plan to reach the targeted audience? Product positioning, marketing strategies, brand promotions, and the time it takes for a brand to be recognized in a market in today's scenario is going to be a very long wait. So, what is it that you have in mind? So, do you have a target set of audience that you want to reach, or do you have a particular idea that is going to, you know, put aside and set aside all the benchmarks that has been already set in the pre-existing economy? These are the major factors regarding to the product or service that you need to keep in mind and work on as basics before you start up working on your idea. Sometimes it might sound elaborate, but your idea, purpose, and execution could be extremely simple. I'll give you a very small example from my line of work. Small businesses and small business owners, predominantly from the agro and food industry where I come from, have come together to form a food community. This is not a futuristic plan. This is something that is already in motion. So I'll give you a brief on that. This food community that circles around the concept from farm to a plate. These are not new ideas, but existing businesses that have come together to create a complete chain of end-to-end food solutions. Right from growing your vegetables to having them cooked and delivered to you, it's going to be an integrated and continuous process flow. Everything is going to be cloud based, and products are going to be sold online. You can disrupt the product chain and say, I just want the agricultural product, I just want a processed product, and I just want the end product. You can choose what you want, or you can choose the entire food chain. The process is going to be very transparent, which means you can see through the vegetables being grown on the farm, products being processed on the factory, meals being cooked in the kitchen, and your order tracked before being delivered to you. You can ask, there's nothing new here. What's the purpose of farming this? It's very simple. Coming together as a community, we plan to address these following points. We want to essentially control the domination of overpriced distribution channels and middlemen. We want to reach out to our customers directly. We want to have that connect and the personal link between the customer and the producer. It's a complete conglomeration of local producers and vendors, and a full-on promotion of going local before going global, and which essentially also aids and supports the your support neighborhood and your go for Make in India campaign. So your local small sellers, small businessmen, your farmers, everybody get benefited, and you grow as an environment as a whole. And we also want to bring to you a very transparent system where you can see what goes into your plate right from when the ingredients are being planted into the soil. This is an example of a simple, existing, yet existential business idea. So your business idea doesn't necessarily have to be a spark from um, something that doesn't exist or something that you need to create on your own. It could be from existing businesses. It could be on things that have been outdated, on how you can re-improve and rectify and bring about a new start to anything that is available in front of you. Moving on to the second part of the startup discussion, I'd like to talk about what are the factors that determine the success of your startup. Like I said, ideas, then teams, business models, funding, and more importantly, timing. An idea is not just what you plan to offer, but it is also a representation of your brand. So it's extremely essential for us to keep our ideas smart, unique, and purposeful. Teams are essential. Teams are essential factors of execution of a plan. For efficient functioning of the organization, it is extremely necessary for the team. Sorry, sorry, excuse me. Yes, sorry. Um, Teams are essential factors of execution of a plan for efficient functioning of an organization. It is extremely essential for the team to be solid, integrated, and have the ability to constantly adapt. You need to be pulled in together with the same course of action and the same motto of achievement. Otherwise, there is no process of coordination, and there will be a lack of integration amongst the idea generation. The business models are clear paths that aim to generate customer revenue. It facilitates in the structured execution of a business plan. Funding again is a very tricky part. It may refer to your sources of monetary support. Some organizations these days prefer to go as a zero debt company and start from their own savings. But in situations like a pandemic like this, you need monetary support from external sources like venture capitalists, money lenders, banking and financial institutions, incubators, accelerators, etc. How you adapt and how you balance your funding again would be a very essential part on the platform, setting up a platform for your business idea. Timing, this is a very interesting concept because this is how you place your product and when you place your product. You need to analyze and find out if your product or idea is too soon for the market. Is the market ready to accept a concept like this, or is it already outdated? Or if it's existential, how do I beat the existing competition? So there was this person called Bill Gross, who is a founder of Idea Lab and an Idea Lab, which is an incubator of new inventions, ideas, and businesses. He came up with a study about these 5 factors. For he was very curious on how many startups with great business models and execution strategies managed to fail continuously. He saw there was a trend of 92% of failure factor, and he wanted to study on how these factors um, aided the growth, facilitated the success and failure of these startups. He gathered data from 100 companies, his own and other people's, and ranked each company on these 5 key factors. He found one surprising factor that stood out from the others, which was timing. Timing was a factor observed to have contributed to 42% of success cases in startups, which meant that if the product or idea that is launched when there is a need or a that fits into the perfect gap in the market, the success rates of it were higher and substantially reachingly high. For examples are the cases of Airbnb and Uber. When Airbnb was launched, the idea was majorly ridiculed, for people thought that it was absurd to stay in strangers' houses. But when the business started functioning, it was a huge hit, which came as a surprise to many. The reason being behind that was the timing at which Airbnb was placed in the market. When Airbnb was launched, it was launched in a time when the recession was at its peak, and people really thought they could do with the extra money in whichever means of possibility, which in turn helped in eradicating the inhibition on their minds to rent out their homes to strangers. Another case of successful timing was that of Uber. Uber, however, had a great business model and had a great execution plan. But what really facilitated to its success was its timing. When Uber came out, they had a huge supply of drivers who were unemployed. The launch of Uber improved employment and the access to cabs substantially, which in turn made it an instant success. Execution of a process definitely matters, but timing and placement of your product is considered a matter of lot more importance in terms of Bill's findings. Um, Now that we saw through on what is the need and the factors, we look up at the essentials of the startup phase, and let's step up the phase of, I'm sorry, the essentials of the startups phase was the need and the factors, and now let's move on to the step up part. The step up phase is simply the firm's ability to adapt, evolve, and sustain according to the various market trends and fluctuations. These fundamental concepts aid in facilitating the steps of and the phases of businesses. What you need is a support system, your fundamentals in stepping up not necessarily means the marketing strategies or financial aids. What goes around in your environment and how you bring up your company as a whole is what we'll be discussing in the next few steps. So let's look into building a support ecosystem, creating an impactful and sustainable business, handling success and failures. When it comes to building an ecosystem, I'd like to talk about my case again. Like discussed earlier, a good team, a great set of employees, an entire workforce, united by a company's mission statement is every entrepreneur's dream, and it's an absolute essential. But the more important aspect to the need to build your own support system is because the entrepreneurial journey can be a bit lonely. It's essential to make sure you have someone you can air it out with, whether it is your spouse, your parents, your mentor, someone you trust. In order to grow, you need to be able to have a sounding board along with the journey. People who nourish your ideas, share your zeal for growth, and are willing to help you in your success journey are the bare essentials for any business environment to grow as a whole. And for that to happen, you need to become more inclusive and involve these people in your business and utilize their ideas and inputs in your business. Become more participative, take more ideas, brainstorm a lot, bring together a community of like minded people that will help you grow as a complete package. That would be the seed to building a support ecosystem. Like I said, in my company, it's a very similar case. The product is my grandmother's recipe, and I can be 100% sure that nobody can perfect it better than her, and we can't have a better person than her to be in charge of the quality and monitoring and overseeing the production activities. When we have somebody this we are somebody with this talent, and we're 100% sure that this is a success case, there is no point in looking outside when you have a like-minded person here. Similarly, my mother is a student of finance, and that's her forte. Taking her help in accounting and coordinating with the auditors part would save a lot for me in the hiring and other activities part. As one of my mentors, my father always guides me and helps me with the brainstorming and generation of new ideas. As a family, this helps in inclusivity. This is a case of family in my situation. For you, it could be your team, it could be your friends, it could be your peers, anybody who shares your same zest for development of business. This inclusivity for us has not only made us closer as a family, but also improved our overall productivity in general as well. With a very good support system, be it success or failure, each experience turns into an experiential learning. The second point, which I would like to talk about, was create an impactful and sustainable business. An impact is generally a effect or influence caused by a particular action. And in the terms of startup perspective, we can segregate that into three different segments: the financial impact, the developmental impact, and the social impact. The financial impact is nothing but the revenue that you generate, your profit generation, your income, everything put together. It is not, I'm not getting into the details of the finance part because finance is a basic necessity in any business. It is the mode for any business to survive, and there is no point in running a business if you're not in there for generating income. If you aren't making money in your business, you need to very quickly and very essentially restart your business plan and take it in a different perspective. The development impact, however, talks about your progress or journey in a set timeline. You can possibly say, I was at point A in 2018, and and right now I'm in point B in 2020, and this growth spam or this timeline has helped me achieve the targets, the milestones, the goals that I had planned for a particular specific time in within my business plan. So it essentially is a measure of where you have been and where you are, and it highlights on, are you in a positive or upscaling growth rate, or are you in a stagnated form, or do you really need to work on your strategies alone? So the development and the impact, financial impact concepts are more inclusive and talk about the business on the inside or front of it. Whereas the third factor, which is our a point of focus in this topic, is the social impact. That is not only an insider point, but also a general environmental perspective as well. See, businesses can not always be on what you gain from the society, but also on what you can give back to it. Socially impactful businesses harness innovation in order to structure a business model around giving back. You can't keep taking from the society without a urge or a role and a responsibility to give back to it. But in order to create a social impact, you need to figure out a certain few factors. What are the social issues you care to address about? What impact are you creating through your business? And how are you creating it? And if you aren't, how do you plan to create it? Again, a scenario from my company would be we are producers of sprouted grain based products, which are wholesome sources of natural nutrition. With a product like that in hand, we felt we could facilitate to the society and add our contribution to it by reaching out and addressing the issue of malnutrition amongst children, especially school going children between the age of 7 and 15. We started reaching out to government schools and privately run free schools, hostels, and ashrams that housed destitute children who went to school without a proper meal or even an access to breakfast every day. We started a crowd-funded project called Ootam, which meant nourishment, wherein we made sure every student had access to one glass of a multigrain drink in the morning so that they did not attend school on an empty stomach. What started off with eight children has now grown to a number of 1,300 children with access to breakfast option. Apart from the moral satisfaction, we as a brand were recognized by the Queensland government for this initiative and were asked to represent our business along with 9 other women from India who aided in funding, in helping out and reaching out to the society in their own possible ways. This happened last November. With a corporate social responsibility and social impact, not only will you have a more compelling reason to stand out as a brand and also spread your word and message across, but you'll also join the global movement of businesses operating together for social good. So when you come together as a society and when you unite together as people with a common cause, you have a more possibility of attaining your your goal or dream on a bigger scale than you had aimed for initially. Let's move on to the last part of the discussion, which is handling success and failures. The issue with the digital age that we live in is that people, including myself, are very impatient. Our generation, as such, we expect results instantaneously, and we do not have, or we're not used to, rather, wait for a particular solution to come up. We want, when there is an action, we want an immediate and instant reaction to it. So I'd like to quote Mr. Bill Gates when he famously said, "Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years." So, in order to build a business, you need to be patient for the long run. Don't think about where you want your business to be in a year, but think about your goals for 10 years down the road and how you're going to execute to make all of your ambitions come to fruition. If you're in your 20s, what will differentiate you as an entrepreneur is your ability to maintain patience. Make sure you move fast on getting stuff done, but the patience for the long term gains are to be held on by you. It is often said that nothing teaches us more than failures. Each failure is not an opportunity forgone, but one step closer to perfection. In any startup or any business as such, monetary hitches are very common. Never associate that as a personal failure. If you're initially underfunded, find ways to improve traction in your business, which would slowly improve your sources of funding. You are never caught up in one particular place until you learn the ability to evolve. Be it success or failure, learn to share your journey with others and learn to let go of it. The more you hold on to it, the more it will weigh you down. And in terms of failures, unless you are 100% sure that you do not want to carry on, you are not a failure. You only lose when you forget the ability to adapt and evolve. To conclude this, I very honestly believe that startups truly make the world a better place. For each startup addresses one new possibility to make life easier and simpler. If you're worried about being too lost and where to start on or what to start on, go back to your basics, find your lines of interest, work on your passions, use the Japanese ikigai concept to find out where you stand and what you want to do. Get yourself a mentor, which is extremely, extremely beneficial, who will discuss, brainstorm, and guide you through your stagnated points of lines. Come up with ideas and then formulate a plan. I'm not sure on how the whole internship model is going to change after this pandemic, but you can learn to equip yourself by learning new courses, skills, and getting certified online, and engage yourself by creating test projects on different areas of interest by utilizing the digital platform as per uh, your needs. I don't think the whole employee life is more secure mentality would work anymore in this scenario. With the amount of rising uncertainties, it's only wise to have a backup option. So learn to build alternatives. You can even start something parallelly while studying or after job hours. If it works out well and if you have a solid plan to execute it better, make that your primary source of work. So that would be a new business idea it's on itself. And also with the reference to current economic situation, the central government has allotted a lot of grants and a lot of support policies for the Indian MSMEs. Around 20 lakh crores of grants have been allotted for startups and people with ideas to start up, and also to fund you in the lines of product development, branding, and such. I'm sure as startups ourselves, we can utilize this and stabilize our respective businesses, or make use of these grants and form a new business and set up a line of wonderful ideas. So this is definitely the time to experiment and take a chance in life. Don't miss out on the opportunity. Never hesitate to ask for help. There are always people around you who would love to grow with you. So go take your shot. You sure can step up and start up. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. The forum is now open for discussion. I
Sure.
request all of you to please post your doubts or comments in the live chat box.
How can we identify whether our startup idea is viable or not? Hello, Ms. Veena. It's very simple. If you have an idea, I'm sure you would have worked on various possibilities or on the similar lines before. You would have known what the market feasibility for your product or your service is. So take a stance at learning about how your product or idea fits into the market, and look out for competitor brands or competitor solutions that are similar to your idea or your plan of work. Compare it, make a market study, and if you have access to mentors, nothing like that, because they would definitely give you better solutions and better ideas in terms of uh, curating to your needs as such. So I would suggest market study and taking advice from professionals in your line of interest. When there are many food startups, how do you manage your competitors? Like I said, it's mine is not a novel product. Mine is essentially a product that we've tried to bring it back. It's more of a traditional product that's forgotten down the uh, modernization process and process, and we're trying to rebring it and reintroduce it into the society. So we definitely have too many competitors, and this is a simple product that can be made at home as well, so which is again a big competition for us. But how we establish it is, we have a USP of, like I said, we are fully sprouted in the grain sector, and we specialize in the sprouting of each grain. And moreover, as a new person in the line of business, I really prefer to have a connect with my customers. Establishing that personal link and making them experience your product is where the whole experiential uh, ability of them to grasp the product begins. So the more they relate to you and the more they establish a link with you in a personal touch, they don't mind coming back to you. So in this scenario, as a small scale business, giving them a connect and a good feel about taking their reviews and making them feel comfortable about a product as simple as mine is where our USP stands. In this economic downturn, if I have to start my business, what would be your tips in terms to keep it growing? Hi, Tina. Um, all of us are just surviving as such. We are still experimenting. If see economic turndowns or not, any business is going to have ups and downs because uh, we are going to go through the phase of product saturation and then reinventing and then coming up with solutions. I'll give you a good example of one such product in Coimbatore, one such delivering company in Coimbatore. Like even today, people are a bit hesitant to take food takeaways from hotels and restaurants. So this one particular restaurant in Coimbatore, what they did was managed a beautiful packaging. They had a brown cover packaging, and they had tissues, gloves, and a picture attached about of their kitchen and the process that went through to pack their product, and a small sanitizer attached to their uh, takeaway bag. So the customer knew what the process was, and he or she would have been happy to see a small sanitizer along with their food package. So they know that they can trust. So the trust factor and establishing that uh, trust, like I said, and also a new experience for the customer. Give them more options and give them more transparency and make them feel like they're a part of the process. And we really need to innovate and regenerate our ideas, even or not there, even or irrespective of whether an economic downturn is there or not. So sustainability depends on your ability to improve and improvise on your toes. So it depends on each product and each brand and how you survive each challenge. In such a pandemic situation where the economy may be facing a low, will the money lenders or banks be ready to fund a new venture? Um, a lot of banks right now would be very willing to give you a loan because the amount of EMIs, the amount of credit card usages would have definitely been very low in the past few months. So you would be treated as a royal customer if you walk into any bank. And like I said, the MSME grants has been allotted. There's a 20 lakh crore, if I'm not wrong, funding that has been allotted for just the small brands and your small businesses. So this is the right time to demand what is being offered to us and take the right facilities offered by the government and also the other banking institutions. So you should reap these opportunities is what I felt. You definitely will have a great interest rate and everything given by the financial institutions. Hi, Shobana. Yes, financial crisis has definitely been a major part of our beginning stages. We're still there, but when we started out, we wanted to be a debt-free company. So it was entirely from my savings, and the money rotating in would have been extremely limited and very minimalistic. So we had to block down on the extras, and we were limited by what we had. But like I said, we are also funding a social enterprise, which means that we need to work for profit to fund the social enterprise. So we had to double up our sales and everything to in order to generate income. So the Utam project gets funded regularly. We could not afford to take away that breakfast option for the children. But financial crisis will always be there for a business. That should not crumble your ability to perform more. There are always venture capitalists and accelerating platforms that will help you out in any time. And if your business plan has potential, they will be willing to definitely help you out. So I think you can take a stance at that. Startup struggle is always there, irrespective of the economic situation, but uh, overcoming it again would be based on how you adapt to your particular scenarios. You can find small sources of you can see a lot of businesses around homemade masks and sanitizers, homemade air sanitizers and home remedies coming up. So you might as well, adapt that. Those are all business opportunities, those are all seasonal business opportunities, but there are still business opportunities that will keep you going in any business line. Instead of narrowing yourself to a product when there is a challenge or situation, you need to venture out, find alternatives and immediate sources of revenue generation that will keep you going, be it small or large or seasonal. It is definitely an opportunity. So if that has potential, you should definitely go for it. So how you venture out is your talent. How can a freelancer person achieve in business, and how can they be an influencer? um, Mr. Seshu's presentation yesterday spoke a lot about social media influencers. Freelancers these days are doing great and reaching great heights. You own a blog, you own a personal page. Especially during these lockdowns, you see there's been an incredible increase in the amount of cooking and recipe based blogs. I've never seen so many blogs coming up in within spans of time. Everybody has a YouTube page or a personal blog, and all of them are evolving the subscribers base and making use of it. You can again take up courses initially if you want to start from fresh, courses on how to access your blogging and how to make best of social media and be an influencer. You can connect with companies and brands that are willing to um, branch out and are looking for people who would do that on the online sales. You can reach out to companies. There are people who would guide you. You need to find the right sources of help for that. So equip yourself and reach out more. So that would be a great and people like influencers and freelancers will always be in demand because you are the content generators. So you will always be in need, and I think you should utilize it to the fullest extent. The entire process of funding a project, there are so many processes. Like, see, there are seed capitalists, there are venture capitalists, there are accelerators who invest in your company. It depends on what your need is. Like I said, my company, we started off as a zero debt company, and we still continue to be a zero debt company. But going down further in the line, I might need the access of loans for branding and for re-promotion of products. So I might have to reach out to banking and financial institutions, or if I feel that coming together as a community works, I can reach out to people who are interested to invest in my company. So what you need your funding depends on what you need and where your investment priorities lie. Do you want to stay safe and take smaller loans? You can reach out to banking institutions. You want to if you're in a very micro scale, there are very smaller organizations like cooperative societies and self-help groups who again have the funding of state governments who will help you with it. Again, you need to formulate a plan on what your need is, and dependingly reach out for funding possibilities. In what age did the idea of business ignite in you, and what are your test projects? 2 years ago, exactly, was when I quit my job and decided to venture into this field, because mine was more of a situational business. I saw an opportunity in my grandmother's product. It was an existing product, but on a very minute scale, done for a very targeted audience. But the reach for the product and the need and demand for the product was something that I felt was had great potential. So I decided to quit my job and take up the company. So But my family as such has been in the entrepreneurial line throughout. So I've always thought of I would invest or get into the field of entrepreneurship maybe in my 30s or 40s. But this was a definite surprise to me as well. The idea that it ignited was definitely the demand for this product in an overseas market where people was triggered by the NRI crowd in US who were very who were in need for this product in their land, and the access to which and the and the extent to which they would buy it and they would go to buy it was a potential that I foresaw. But after taking it up, I did go through a series of internships with my grandmother herself. So I had to go through the learning curve of the production process and the branding and the marketability, understand the marketability of this product, because I was new to this line and I had to take up courses on nutrition and understand and perfect myself in this line. But mine would not be a idea generated by me, but it was more of a situational demand addressed. Service industry is definitely funded. Yes, you can reach out. You can if you're going to banks and financial institutions, just go with a plan, business plan, and a proposal of the plan and the possibility of how your product would be in if the certain goals and targets are reached, and what is the capacity to which your service industry can reach out to the market. If it addresses the whole complete business plan, that would be a great funding. And any service industry is the most safest line of business, because you do not have to hold on to inventory but work on ideas. I'm still under mentorship program, and I hope I would mentor in future. But I feel I still have a lot to learn before I take up personal mentorship uh, posts as such. Thank you so much for the appreciation. But right now, I'm still learning myself. So, future in the future, I hope to mentor. Thank you so much. Starting a business in digital marketing is not exactly my forte, but see, there are companies and there are specific social media marketing consultants who would help you perfectly with it. If used right, the digital marketing platform can be an exclusivity, bring in an exclusivity to your brand. Like there are companies like Paprika Tales and such who are an exclusive social media branding. They deal with only designer saris from Kanchipuram, and they have curated content and curated material that they provide to the audience. And it is a brand that has done very beautifully only through Instagram and Facebook. So if you're starting a business on digital marketing, you can take experience from experts in those fields. You can follow beautiful pages and success stories in Instagram. There is a separate Instagram entrepreneurship page in Instagram that will guide you and that will provide you with pages that have created successful stories. So take help from the experts in the field, and you can build a beautiful brand online. Viable, yes, definitely it is viable. But is it necessary for you, or do you have the capacity to take up a loan? And does your product has a growth curve within a particular span of time? And will you be able to repay that? Is something that you need to plan. But viability is definitely viable. That's what venture capitalists are for, essentially for. They see potential in your brand. They will definitely invest in your equity, and they will take a share of your growth and help you in developing your brand as a whole. Post COVID effect will definitely be there for any company or any industry as such, because the whole mentality of people is about to change. And as companies and as individuals as a whole, we're going to have to be a lot more responsible about our actions towards the environment, and our the effects and causes of what our actions are going to react to the environment as well. That's something we need to bear in mind before we do anything. So as a company, I think we need to forego on all the extras and all the fluff that we've been doing so far. I don't think we might have access to that as well. But the sales and the whole curve of buying and selling is never going to get affected, because as long as people are there, there's going to be demand. The whole over abusing of market, or whole concept of overutilization or overstuffing of the market will definitely change. Though the mindset of people would hopefully would have changed to, limiting themselves to whatever is essential, and not just go about on a frenzy buying freak out phase. So I think the quantity might go down, and if people realize that what is sufficient is enough for them, the rates and the scales might go down, but the demand for the product will definitely remain. Because as long as people are there, there is going to be a need for any product or service.
I don't see any more queries coming up in the chat box. So I
Oh,
think probably like we can end the session. I
sure.
request Mrs. Anupama Rajan, Assistant Professor, Department of Bank Management, to express our gratitude to the speaker.
Good morning. It is my privilege to thank on the behalf of the Department of Bank Management for the second day of the webinar series, Be Unstoppable, on the topic Step Up and Startup. The entire session has been an eye-opener to our students to mature into promising entrepreneurs and venture into a successful startup. I'm sure that they will have the benefit of being able to handle the success and failures in the business with confidence. I thank Ms. Vaishnavi for such an inspiring and thought-provoking presentation. With this, let me conclude the session and see you all on Monday at 11 a.m. for the day 3 session. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was wonderful speaking to you all.